Italy's past is often remembered for its tendency to switch sides during both world wars. The reasons behind these significant changes might seem simple: the need for self-preservation and the pursuit of power. However, there's a lesser-known switch between these well-known shifts, one that is rarely discussed and frequently misunderstood. This hidden chapter in Italy's history pertains to its alignment with the Axis powers in 1918, which ultimately laid the foundation for its partnership with Germany in 1939. Today, we embark on a journey to uncover the secrets behind this mysterious change, diving deep into the complex world of diplomacy, politics, and strategy that brought Italy into the Axis powers. Let's begin. The story begins in October 1922, when Benito Mussolini led the infamous March on Rome and became the youngest Italian prime minister at that time. Mussolini wasted no time consolidating his power. He used secret police and clamped down on labor strikes, essentially erasing political opposition. This was more than a power grab, it was an attack on the very fabric of the Italian state. Over the years that followed, Mussolini and his followers employed a series of tactics and laws that transformed Italy into a one-party dictatorship. They established dictatorial authority and birthed a new kind of totalitarian state in Europe. Mussolini, however, was acutely aware that Italy wasn't fully prepared for a protracted conflict, given its limited resources and relatively smaller military compared to the major powers on the global stage. Despite this, Mussolini decided to join World War II, aligning with the Axis powers, as long as it served the unrealistic imperial ambitions of his regime. Mussolini harbored dreams of resurrecting something akin to the ancient Roman Empire in the Mediterranean. By late 1942, some of these ambitions had been partially realized. Italian influence had spread across the Mediterranean basin, and the Axis powers were at the zenith of their power on various fronts. Italy had directly annexed territories like Albania, parts of Slovenia, coastal Dalmatia, and Montenegro. Moreover, most of Greece came under Italian occupation after the Greco-Italian War. However, the Italian invasion of Greece in October 1940 proved to be a disaster. The Greek forces, determined and fighting mainly on challenging mountainous terrain along the Albanian-Greek border, thwarted the initially expected swift victory. By mid-November, the Greeks had not only stopped the Italian invasion, but also pushed the Italian forces back into Albania. While Italy struggled, their German allies achieved significant victories against Greece and Yugoslavia, occupying parts of British-held Egypt on their march towards El Alamein. Yet Italy's conquest faced heavy resistance, with strong partisan movements causing headaches for the Axis. As the North African campaign unraveled in favor of the Allies, Mussolini turned to Germany for assistance. By May 1943, the Allies had defeated Axis forces in North Africa, prompting the need for new strategies. However, there was a fundamental disagreement among the Allies, particularly between British Prime Minister Winston Churchill and the United States. Churchill favored a naval-focused approach with precise, small-scale operations to weaken the enemy. In contrast, the United States, with its larger army, leaned towards a more direct, brute force strategy. They believed that winning the Battle of the Atlantic and launching a full-scale invasion of France was the path to ending the European war. Ultimately, a compromise was reached. Both the US and British committed most of their forces to a 1944 invasion of France, but also launched a smaller-scale Italian campaign. Franklin D. Roosevelt was keen on keeping US troops active in Europe during 1943 and saw the merit in attempting to knock Italy out of the war. The hope was that by targeting Italy with its internal issues and past military failures, they might force it to exit the conflict. Eliminating Italy from the war would also grant the Allies control of the Mediterranean Sea, mainly through the Royal Navy, and potentially open up a broader southern front in the ongoing struggle. With Italy's decision to enter the war, a series of strategic moves came into play. Italian divisions stationed in the Balkans and France, responsible for occupation and coastal defense, were ordered to withdraw and defend their homeland. Simultaneously, the Germans had to shift troops from the Eastern Front to bolster Italy's defense and safeguard the entire southern coast of France, inadvertently assisting the Soviet Union in the process. The combined Allied invasion of Sicily commenced on July 10, 1943, featuring both amphibious and airborne landings. The land forces involved were the U.S. 7th Army under Lieutenant General George S. Patton and the British 8th Army, led by General Bernard Montgomery. Despite the German and Italian forces' inability to prevent the Allies from capturing the island, they managed to evacuate most of their troops to the mainland. Forces of the British 8th Army, still under Montgomery's command, landed in the toe of Italy on September 3, 1943, in Operation Baytown, coinciding with the Italian government's armistice agreements with the Allies. This armistice was publicly announced on September 8th through broadcast by General Eisenhower and a proclamation by Marshal Pietro Badoglio. Although the German forces prepared to defend Italy without Italian assistance, there was some hope that with Italy's surrender, the Germans would withdraw to the north. However, on October 13, 1943, 1 month after Italy surrendered to the Allies, Italy declared war on Germany, its former Axis powers partner. This abrupt shift in allegiance was orchestrated by Benito Mussolini, the prime minister who had formed an alliance with Germany back in 1936. However, as Allied forces landed in Sicily during the summer of 1943, public support for both the war and Mussolini began to wane. Mussolini was ousted from power on July 25th, and General Pietro Badoglio, his replacement, sought peace with the Allies and ultimately reached an armistice on September 3rd. As Germany proceeded with an occupation of Italy, seizing strongholds from a disorganized Italian military, it raised questions about why Italy seemed to switch sides so readily. Despite its potential as a great power, Italy had significant shortcomings, not just in its military capabilities. The nation grappled with a fragmented society after World War I, marked by political instability. The rise of Mussolini, who promoted war and fanaticism, further exacerbated these instabilities. Italy's logistical deficiencies were evident in its military campaigns, primarily due to a lack of proper equipment rooted in various factors. The Italian army not only suffered from being poorly equipped with outdated or insufficient weapons, but also struggled with inadequate training. Many army officers had prepared for conventional warfare, failing to adapt to the demands of modern warfare. The complexities of Italy's wartime predicament deepen when we look at its military leadership. Some generals were chosen more for their loyalty to the regime rather than their strategic capacities, which significantly impacted the effectiveness of the Italian armed forces. While Italy could be considered Germany's main ally, it was ill-prepared for a large-scale conflict. Italy's industrial sector was comparatively small, and the preparedness and training of its soldiers were limited. In contrast, Germany placed a paramount emphasis on building industries for the production of tanks, artillery, warplanes, and other essential war materials. The Italian army, on the other hand, found itself poorly equipped for a confrontation with the likes of Great Britain or the United States. Italian industries lagged behind in both quantity and quality compared to those of their adversaries. Geographically, Italy's position posed another significant challenge. As a peninsula with extensive coastlines to guard, it faced the risk of enemy amphibious and paratrooper landings, particularly in seas where its naval dominance was waning. While the Italian Navy played its part in securing coastal areas in large parts of the sea, the lack of proper warplanes, both in terms of numbers and technology, to support naval campaigns proved to be a substantial drawback. North Africa, which could have acted as a shield between continental Italy and the Allies, became the backdrop for an unsuccessful campaign. This opened the door for British and American landings in Sicily and, subsequently, in the toe of Italy. For much of the Italian political class, it became increasingly apparent that the Italian forces were grappling with a more formidable enemy, and the war was no longer confined to distant borders. As the Allies advanced, they encountered even more challenging terrain. Allied forces made slow progress northward through the Italian peninsula, ultimately achieving victory over Axis forces in May 1945. Benito Mussolini, rescued by the Germans from an Italian prison, was installed as the leader of a puppet state known as the Italian Social Republic. However, as the Allies closed in, Mussolini's fate took a grim turn. He was captured by members of the Italian partisan resistance in parts of Italy not occupied by Allied forces and subsequently executed. Italy's journey through World War II was marked by a series of challenges, from its industrial limitations and military deficiencies to its vulnerable geographical position. These factors, combined with shifting alliances and internal turmoil, paint a comprehensive picture of Italy's complex role in the conflict. Now, we would like to hear from you. What are your thoughts on Italy's role in the war, its shifting alliances, and the factors that influenced its decisions? Please share your insights and thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel to stay updated on more compelling episodes of military history. Together, let's continue to learn.